They gonna ride?
I gotta get a bunch more of them.
Look at these.
They'll probably be all right. Yeah, they're about 2 foot tall. Good morning, everybody. This is Danny and Wanda from Deep South Homestead this morning. We're out here in our garden, guys. Hopefully today was the last day of the 35-degree temperatures in the morning. From this point forward, temperatures are supposed to be in like the mid-40s for 3 or 4 days and then start warming up to the 50s. That's okay for tomatoes. They can handle that because we've been hardening them off. The first thing I want to bring to the attention is the tomatoes that's sitting behind me. These tomatoes were all planted at exactly the same time. The exact same procedure was used on these tomatoes all the way throughout their growing life thus far. The only difference is in the high tunnel, one was placed in one location and one was placed in another location in the high tunnel, which tells us that even inside the high tunnel, there is microclimates. These tomatoes in the back here are almost 2 foot tall. The ones here in the front are barely a foot tall. They were both put in there exactly the same day, fertilized exactly the same way, put in the exact same cups and pots and everything else, and yet these are not quite a foot tall. These are 2 foot tall because of the amount of sunlight that was given in the high tunnel. We realized that after a while, wow, we had the tomato plants on some of them in the wrong location. This particular variety of tomatoes here is a hybrid variety of tomatoes. It is the Celebrity. It's the one that we have the most luck with here at Deep South Homestead. And you can see the plants are big, beautiful, and healthy. Now, these are going to have to be buried a lot deeper in the ground than these are. It's just the way it's going to have to be. A lot of people lay them down flat ways in the ground in a trench and cover them up. We don't do that because here, when it's really cold like it's been being, our experience is that in the future, what usually happens is it turns off extremely dry for like 2 or 3 weeks after we plant them. And then we're manually just having to water like crazy just to keep them going. So we've learned another procedure that we're going to be sharing with you in just a moment. But guys, the next part of this video, I want to show you how to reuse your ground cover. Now, a lot of our ground cover has holes already burnt in it for our tomato plants from year to year. And a lot of people's like, wow, said, you take your ground cover up and then you got to go back and try to figure out how to do this. And, you know, it just becomes a headache. I'm going to show you how we do our ground cover and how we work it when we reuse it year after year. We even reuse our staples. I don't throw anything away until it's absolutely to the point where I cannot use it anymore because this stuff is expensive and I want to make sure I get as much life out of it as I can. Now, the ground cover we're using now, this is year 3 for us on some of this ground cover. Some of it's year 2. It's still in perfectly good shape. There's no need in trying to do anything else. Okay, the first thing we do is we take I have a piece of rebar here. Now we've put our row cover down here, all the way down as far as it will reach down yonder. And we have stapled only the upper side of it right here. We have not put any staples in the bottom side. We've got it stretched tight and it's ready to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of rebar and we're going to be making a mark in the center of each one of these holes. Now what this does to what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking our row cover and we're going to be rolling it back out of the way, and what that will do is that will show us where each one of our holes is located in this set so that we can prepare the ground for our tomato plants at that particular hole. Okay, next we're going to be taking our post hole diggers and we're going to be digging a hole at each one of those marks that I made when I punched it in the center of the ground cover. I realize there's a layer there that I got to get out of there. Alright guys, we've got our holes dug, and you'll notice there's some black dirt here, and then there's some light colored dirt, and then there's the dark orange. What I've done is I dug through the topsoil and I hit the hard pan that's down in the ground. I went ahead and dug through the hard pan, which is usually about 2 inches, and once you get below that, the ground gets soft again. So my whole purpose with the post hole diggers was to get through the topsoil and through the hard pan so that the roots of the tomato plant can actually reach below down in there to get some of the minerals and nutrients that's deep in the ground. And plus, what I do is I come in, I save my old corn cobs from when we shell our corn, and I'll take them and I'll drop them down in the bottom of that hole. And I'll put anywhere between 4, 5, 6 corn cobs down in the bottom of that hole. And then I will put some of this topsoil that I dug off back down in on top of the corn cobs. And I'm just barely covering them up, letting it fall in around them a little bit. That way, they're kind of like, they're going to operate like a giant sponge. Once they get full of moisture down in there, they will continually hold the moisture in the bottom down there. Now once I do that, what I'll do, I have a little bit of triple 13 fertilizer here. I'll put just a little bit down in the bottom of that hole. And then I'll take some of this dirt that's the lighter colored dirt, and I'll just mix it in on top of it. Just a little bit, enough to cover it up. Then I'll take some calcium nitrate, because tomato plants need calcium. And this kind of makes sure, just a little bit in my hand, I'll just sprinkle it down in the hole. Then I'll take a little bit more of this darker dirt, and I'll sprinkle it back in on top of it. That way, none of my roots are actually setting in any fertilizer anywhere. And then I'll take one of my plants, you can see how tall they are, and I will break the bottom leaves off of them because they serve absolutely no purpose at this point. And I'll leave the very top ones. We'll turn this thing upside down, And we'll take it out. As you can see, the roots are just wrapped all around it everywhere. It's nice and wet. And all these little hair roots that you see on the tomato plant here, they're going to make new roots going into the soil. Now I got water dripping out of this because it's so wet. And I'm going to set this all the way down in there. Then we're going to take our topsoil that's left here and we're going to begin putting it back around it, taking our fingers, making sure that we have it packed nice and tight, no air pockets anywhere. And then we'll gradually begin to backfill. Making sure not to damage the tomato plant. That is one procedure to do. Now, because this is the planting procedure that we're going to use. Now I'm going to actually take this back up because there's no way we could put the row cover over the top of this tomato plant and it actually work because it would be just too difficult to do. But I wanted to show y'all an up-close view of the actual way that we will plant the tomato plant in the holes once we get all the holes dug and get all the dirt put back in them and completely covered up. I'll go back once we put the row cover on and scoop the dirt out of the top of it and plant them. But this is the actual planting procedure that we will use. The red dirt that we have left over here, what I usually do with it is just take it and sprinkle it because it's got a little bit of clay in it. I'll just sprinkle it on top of the ground here. And what happens is over the years, this works back into the soil and helps to retain a little bit more moisture in our sandy soil here. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to go down through here and we're going to dig all these holes. We're going to put the corn cobs in them. We're going to get all of our fertilizer in, get everything amended, and get the holes covered completely back up. Then we're going to pull our row cover back over and staple it down, and then we're going to plant our tomatoes. Okay guys, we've got all the dirt down through there now in the holes. Got the clay put out on top of the ground. And let me make a statement here that the reason we're doing it the way we're doing it is my daddy always told me, son, if you don't break that pan under the ground, the water from deep in the ground cannot make it up to the top. That's why the old people subsoiled and flat broke fields every 3 years, because that pan would get back on the ground and not let the water rise and lower. That's the reason when you have a rainstorm, all the water runs off of the ground. We're on hillsides, and if we don't do this every 3 years, instead of the water soaking into the ground, it goes down, hits that pan, and runs off, and our plants do not benefit from it. That's why we can't really do the no-till, because we've got that hard clay pan about 12 inches deep under the ground. We need to be able to break that in order for our plants to be able to water themselves without us having to come out here every day dumping water on them. I gotta get it where I can lay it. Time I get it pulled over. Let me go ahead and staple that. like this scoop. Yeah, I feel the corn cobs when I get down there.
This makes it a lot easier to dig.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to dig.
Mixes
the fertilizer in with the soil and the nitrate and the nitrogen and all that and the calcium. Then we're going to take one of our plants. Look at the roots on these things.
Isn't that awesome?
We're going to get rid of some of these leaves. Take our cup. Maybe a little more challenging with all these roots on it. Not going to want to come out of here as well, but we'll get it. Come on. Oh, I see what it is. They grow from side to side. That's what it was.
Look at there.
Look at that. Now that, my friends, is a root system.
It's awesome.
We're going to take it. We're going to go all the way down in there, and I'll take my hands and just shove down tight. And then this dirt has the calcium nitrate and the triple 13 kind of mixed all in with it. That gives me fertilization all the way from the bottom to the top.
And the corn cobs underneath?
And the corn cobs underneath it, holding moisture. This ground is really wet, so we're not really having to put any water in them right now because, and there we go. And don't worry that when you fill the holes back in with dirt and you spread your clay that you don't fill the hole all the way up with dirt, because the dirt in the cup is going to take care of some of that area in the hole. That turns out perfect.
We'll come back and water later.
Yeah, we'll water later.
We do want to water them, but it's wet and they're not going to droop right now.
Yeah, they're fine right now.
But isn't that gorgeous? That's a pretty tomato plant.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
It's ready to bloom, ain't it?
It'll probably have tomatoes on it in the next week or two. You gotta believe.
I do believe. As fast as these things are growing.
Yeah,
oh my goodness. They are
another
going.
thing, I'm using this here. Everybody wants to know about this scoop. This is this came from our Homestead box when we used to get this. This is made by, I'm trying to read the name on it here. Well, this just says it's made out of stainless steel. I think this is Ames, A-I-M-E-S is the name of these. And I like this because when I dig into the hole like this, it gets the scoop. In other words, there's a whole scoop of dirt that comes out with it, and it holds it perfectly. Ooh, look at them. Ain't that pretty plants? You just don't find plants like that at the store.
Not in a red solo cup.
Not in a red solo cup, anyway. Look at that. That's like perfect. They're not root bound. They slide right down in that post hole digger hole, and then I put my fingers on each side of the plant, not to make sure I don't damage the plant, and just push it down tight. And my plant a lot of times will end up being over to the side of the hole, which is perfectly fine, because we're going to come back and put a stake in here eventually to stake these with. And I'll take my hands and just kind of, just kind of mash the dirt down so we get rid of the air. And don't worry, if your plant's leaning a little bit or something like that, ain't no big deal. The sun's going to straighten it right up.
Plus, we're going to be staking them after a while.
Yeah, we'll stake them eventually, so it ain't no big deal. All right, guys, we've got them all planted. I think there's like 24 or 25 of them here. The Celebrity might be an Amish paste in there or two, because we got down to the end and found in the container there was a pot that had Amish paste in it. And we didn't remember if we had 2 or 3 Amish paste stuck in that end or not, because there wasn't a tag in each pot. So we pulled the one out that said Amish paste, but it's possible We could have an Amish paste or two down there, but it doesn't matter because we're not saving seeds on this garden. These are strictly, mostly going to be hybrids over here. And guys, these are our tomatoes that usually do the best. And the next week, we're going to be moving over and planting another row of tomatoes here. This will be the Celebrity Plus that we're doing for Hoss Tool Seed Company to, I guess you might say as an experiment for them to see how they do down in the Deep South down here. Now the Celebrity Plus will not be available till next year. This is strictly a trial season for them to see how they do. So you might want to go check them out and see what kind of seeds they have if you're interested in a variety of seeds. We do use a lot of Hoss Tool seeds here. We have really good success with them here in our zone because they're in the same zone we're in, and it really makes a difference about getting a seed from the zone that you're in. There'll be a link in the description down below so that you can go down and check them out if you're interested in purchasing some seed from them. They have lots of varieties of them. And the potatoes you see in the background, all of those potatoes except 2 rows came from Hoss Tool Seed Company also. 2 rows of them we bought locally here because we like our local red potatoes here. But the rest of them, guys, are doing fantastic. We have no insect issues right now. Probably this is going to be it. We thought about replowing them one more time, but we got to looking and they're done too tall for the tractor to straddle them. So not going to be any more plowing on them. So we're going to just be letting them go till they do what they do. Now we may come in there with a hoe if we see a place where looks like some potatoes are starting to get to the sun. We may take a hoe and cover them up. But guys, time to move on to bigger and better things here at Deep South Homestead. Thank you guys.